In the first season, our story concluded with a somber funeral following the tragic all-student praxis incident. 11 professors lost their lives, but miraculously, all students survived. The perpetrators' wanted posters have been circulated, but there's still no solid lead. For the 6th-year academy students, though, there's no time to mourn. Their final exams have begun, and the first hurdle, the written exam, is upon them. Will Serfort, with a total of 5,817 credits, is still 1,383 credits short of the requirement to ascend the tower. The next day, the Academy is buzzing with news of Will achieving perfect scores in all subjects. 2 students are overheard gossiping about how a non-magic user like Will could possibly graduate and ascend. Meanwhile, Professor Edward watches from afar, his gaze sharp and seemingly displeased. In his office, Professor Werkner is elated by Will's achievement. Professor Elisa joins him, congratulating him on the success of his student. However, Werkner cautions that there's still a long way to go and nothing is certain until the very end. Meanwhile, Will is studying in the library with Colette by his side. She's worried about him overworking himself. Despite looking exhausted, Will remains determined, knowing that the final written exam is tomorrow. Rosti arrives and points out that Will already has enough credits to graduate. Will confirms this, but insists on continuing his studies, as he only needs 1 more credit to ascend the tower. His total credits now stand at 7199, just 1 short of the required 7200. The scene shifts to the Academy Library, where Colette arrives with dinner for Will. She finds him fast asleep from studying too hard. Seeing Will vulnerable, Colette leans in to kiss him. But before she can, Rosti appears behind her, startling her. Flushed, Colette claims she was only trying to cover Will with a blanket. She expresses her concern for Will's ambition to become a magia vendor. Will is always getting beaten up chasing after Elfaria, but Elfaria is just waiting at the top of the tower. The next day was the final written exam. The students began to grumble as Professor Edward, known for his difficult exams, was to be the proctor for the last test. Soon, Professor Edward entered the room and demanded everyone to quiet down. He announced that there would be only 1 question on the final exam, worth 6 credit points. He then distributed the exam papers to each student using magic. When the papers were opened, they found a simple question: what is magic? The question asked for a written description of the process of using magic, including how a wizard connects with their magical power. They had to put their feelings into words. This question would be easy for wizards and elves, but difficult for those who had never used magic, as they wouldn't know what it felt like. In other words, it would be difficult for Will, who couldn't use magic. Will felt despair. He admitted he couldn't answer the question and was sure to fail the exam, thus dashing his promise to Elfaria. However, remembering Elfaria's face, he regained his spirit. He poured all his knowledge and experience about magic into the exam paper. After the exam, Professor Werkner immediately went to Professor Edward's room. Angrily, Professor Werkner asked what was the point of giving such a question on the final exam. Professor Edward replied that he was merely asking the most basic question that any wizard aspiring to reach the tower should know. He added that it was unfortunate that only 40% of the students could answer the question correctly. Professor Werkner shouted in anger, "That kind of question is aimed squarely at one specific student. As a professor, how can you do something that absurd?" Professor Edward pushed Professor Werkner to the ground, saying, "The ones being absurd are you guys. What are you trying to accomplish by letting someone who can't use magic go up the tower? What could he possibly do in the graveyard of wands? Do you intend to use him as a guinea pig? You fool, this is no laughing matter. In this world of magic, a sword can never become a wand. Something's wrong with you guys, both you and the principal, wresting a dream that will never came true from his grasp. That's the least I could do to ease his suffering." With this, Will only achieved a total of 7,199 credits, and his qualification to advance to the tower was not met. That night, Will was consumed by despair after failing to advance to the tower. Overwhelmed by disappointment, he chose to be alone in a quiet garden. A while later, Rosti approached him, saying that he had repaired Will's glasses and left them in his room, hoping it would lift his spirits. However, Will remained unresponsive, his mind preoccupied with his failure. After a moment, Will finally spoke, his voice trembling. He said that Professor Edward was the worst, and there was no way a student like him could answer that question. He felt it was so unfair. The words seemed to burst out of him, accompanied by tears streaming down his face, reflecting a deeper pain than he could express. Seeing his friend so down, Rosti tried to comfort him, saying that he might not know how much this meant to him, but that he would always be there for Will. However, it only caused Will to cry even harder, unable to contain his deep disappointment. Meanwhile, in the academy, Colette was searching for Will. She asked Lehanna and Wignall if they had seen him. Lehanna explained that she and Wignall had searched everywhere, but there was no sign of Will. Wignall speculated that Will might be outside the academy. Colette became increasingly worried. She wondered where Will had gone, her mind filled with unspoken fears. Soon, Julius appeared and sarcastically said that students who failed to advance to the tower often lost their spirit and left the academy. For him, searching for someone he considered incompetent was a waste of time. Suddenly, Wignall stopped in his tracks, pointing his wand directly at Julius' face. Wignall demanded that Julius retract his insulting words about an elf's friend. Julius was undeterred. He knocked Wignall's wand away, stating that this was a magic academy, and in this world, magic was everything. No matter how great Will was in the dungeon, there was no place for a sword like him. Soon, Shaun arrived with a cynical look at Julius. Julius asked what was with that look. Wasn't he also considering Will an enemy? Shaun agreed, saying he was really annoyed because he wanted to defeat Will with his own hands, but now he wouldn't have the chance anymore, and it made him sick. In the midst of the heated argument, Professor Werkner suddenly appeared, asking what was going on. Colette explained that they were looking for Will but couldn't find him. With a calm demeanor, Professor Werkner asked them to stop searching, as he would look for him himself, and instead, he asked them to relax and enjoy the last night of the year at the Terminaria celebration. That night was filled with merriment. In the sky, an elite high mage named Wistoria greeted everyone enthusiastically as the host of the event. With a playful tone to lighten the mood, she introduced herself as a 26-year-old virgin mage from the tower. She reminded everyone of the importance of the Terminaria festival, a festival where the Great Barrier protecting the sky is recreated. Long ago, mankind had no knowledge of the sky, and this world was enclosed in darkness. With the invaders from the heavens spreading destruction throughout the land, a great many lives were lost, and right when despair seemed to have engulfed everyone, under the command of our progenitor, the Magic Queen Mercedes, 5 great mages sealed off the sky, repelling the invaders. On this day, 500 years ago, the Great Barrier made by the Magia Vendor created a boundary separating them from the heavens that continues to protect them to this day. Everyone greatly enjoyed the festive night with its merriment, unaware of the danger that would soon target them. In the midst of the merriment, Iris stood with a worried face, thinking about the failure of the festival that was about to happen. She prayed that everything would go smoothly. Below, Lodge Holland from the Flame faction communicated seriously with Iris. Lodge reported that nothing suspicious was found on land, then asked about the situation in the sky. Iris assured him that the sky was also safe and the event could continue. As the clock neared midnight, 5 members of the Magia Vendor stepped onto the stage. The crowd's cheers filled the air, welcoming the Magia Vendor who had already taken the stage. Sarah spoke to the crowd, realizing that there might be those out there who were disappointed and drowning in despair. However, she asked everyone to lift their heads, because the threat of the heavenly invader still lurked in this world. Sarah asked them to raise their wands and help defend the sky, and the Magia Vendor began to chant the spell Grand Technique, Wendy's Terminaria, creating a magic circle that formed a great barrier. However, suddenly a black writing appeared in the air from Hitless that read, Happy New Year. The merriment of that night immediately vanished, replaced by a chilling silence. At the same time, numerous magic circles appeared in the sky. Lodge, panicked, immediately instructed his subordinates to find the source of those magic circles. Soon after, Dynabolos monsters emerged from all the newly created magic circles in the air. The monsters brutally attacked the city, destroying everything in their path. From a building, Mars and Hitler watched the chaos they had created. Mars stated that the Magia vendor's magic power had been drained after they created the Great Barrier earlier, and for the time being, they would be unable to do anything. Hitler added that this was the beginning of the slaughter party they had planned. Amidst the chaos, Will, who had previously been immersed in his depression, looked up at the sky and saw the appearing magic circles. He recognized it as the same circle he had seen on the 15th floor of the dungeon. Realization dawned on him that something terrible was happening. Meanwhile, in the city, the unprepared residents ran around in panic, trying to save themselves. They wondered why the monsters from the dungeon could appear on the surface. Seeing the worsening situation, Sarah quickly acted. She decided to create a protective wall by summoning her guardian, hoping it could help deal with the threat. At the same time, Lodge gave an order to all his troops to start chanting a spell, focusing on destroying the monsters in front of them. With Lodge's command, the troops simultaneously launched a fire magic attack on Dynabolos, creating a massive explosion. Indeed, this was the extraordinary power of the high mages of the tower. Feeling confident that they had defeated Dynabolos, Lodge ordered his troops to track down the magic circles and capture the person responsible for this chaos. However, when the smoke from the attack cleared, Dynabolos was still standing unharmed. Lodge was shocked to see the monster unscathed, and disbelief was evident on his face. Fueled by anger, Lodge attacked again with his strongest magic, but the attack was easily parried by Dynabolos. Confusion and frustration enveloped Lodge as he realized that his magic had no effect. With rage, Lodge tried to attack once more, but suddenly Sarah shouted, warning him to stay away. Unfortunately, Lodge was too late to realize it, and in an instant, Dynabolos slashed his body in two. The horrific event left everyone stunned in fear and despair. Dynabolos laughed contentedly as if enjoying the ongoing chaos. Lodge's troops, realizing that their magic was useless against Dynabolos, began to panic and flee the battle. From the sky, Sarah was stunned and could only ponder as she realized that magic was useless against the monsters. Moreover, her guardian had also been destroyed, making her feel disbelief in this situation. In her confusion, Dynabolos suddenly appeared from behind, trying to finish her off. Luckily, Sarah managed to dodge in time. From that attack, Sarah realized something. If the monsters were carrying mage killer swords, weapons capable of neutralizing magic. Quickly, Sarah reported this crucial information to Headmaster Cauldron through her communication channel. Cauldron concluded that the mage killer swords received from Finn had been mass-produced. He also began to realize that this attack seemed too planned to be carried out by one person. Their target was clearly the Magia vendor. Realizing this, Cauldron prohibited sending reinforcements to the city. She ordered her subordinates to protect the tower at all costs, realizing that the chaos in the city was just a diversion. Meanwhile, inside the tower, the Magia vendor just sat idly by, watching the disaster unfold. Eleanor, with a skeptical look, expressed that this was the Terminaria Day, the only day when they were truly weak. She wondered who was the fool who dared to plan this attack at such a perfect moment. Logwell, unable to bear the situation, stated that they had to act and show the power of the Magia vendor to save many lives. However, before he could finish his sentence, Noah stopped him coldly. He warned Logwell not to take foolish actions that would only tarnish his reputation. Zio then asked Noah about the next step. Noah firmly ordered all Magia vendor not to leave this place. He emphasized that losing even one Magia vendor would cause the Great Barrier to collapse, which would allow the heavenly invaders to descend to Earth and turn the whole world to ash. Meanwhile, outside the tower, the villains were annoyed that the Magia vendor had not come out yet. Mars commented that the bait they had prepared should be enough to lure them out, and if they dared to come out, they would be immediately killed. Hitler calmly replied, "Then let's enjoy it, this spectacle." Amidst the increasing chaos, Iris felt confused and didn't know what to do to save everyone. In the midst of her anxiety, she looked back and saw a mother trapped under the rubble of a building, while her child stood beside her, waiting anxiously. Unfortunately, a Dynabolos monster approached them. Without hesitation, Iris cast her magic to protect them, but the magic was easily deflected by Dinobolos. The monster continued to approach and intended to finish off the mother and child. Iris screamed in despair. But suddenly, the monster's hand was severed. The presence of a young man who could cut off Dinobolos' hand made Mars and Hitler silent. The young man was none other than Will Serfort. Without saying a word, Will immediately slashed Dinobolos' body until it was shattered, and in an instant, the monster that had previously been invincible to the high mages was easily chopped to pieces by Will. Alright, that's it for this episode. If you want more, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Peace out.